Hello, my name is Zach Fuller.
And I'm Reed Harston, and we wrote some instructions for BYU Idaho students on how to install Windows, especially Windows 10, on their Mac. And we wrote this especially for them because BYU Idaho students have access to Windows 10 on the BYU Idaho online bookstore for free. And so we would like to show you now some of the steps on how that works.
So if you're following along with us on our slides, go ahead and move to slide number 2. Wanted to talk a little bit about why you might want to partition your hard drive if you have a Mac. As you can see here, there are some programs and software for engineering students like Reed and I that we need to accomplish our coursework. The problem is not all of these programs and software are available for Mac, and if they are, many times they're a little bit different. So for example, SolidWorks, many engineering students need it, but it's not available on Mac. LT Spice is an electrical engineering software. It is available for Mac, but it's substantially different than the Windows version. So installing Windows on your Mac would make life just that much easier for a BYU Idaho student.
And as we move on to slide 3, we see the list of materials. There's actually a Mac there and a USB drive. If you look closely, you see that the USB drive has 8 gigs written on it, and that's important, because you cannot use anything smaller than that if you want to install using the USB drive, because it will have to fit the Windows 10 installer and the drivers. So it has to be at least 8 gigs, and your Mac needs to be 2012 or newer if you would like to install Windows 10.
So let's go ahead and move to slide number 4. We're not going to get into all the details on how to install Windows, but we would like to go over a few of the trickier parts and highlight some of the important parts of our presentation. So the first step is to download the Windows installer. On slide 5, you'll see a snapshot of the University Store page where you can download Windows 10. Now, for our presentation, or for our instructions, it's important that you select Windows 10 because Windows 8.1 and Windows 7 here are shown as upgrades only. It's not a full operating system download, so you will only be able to install Windows 10 from the University Store. And if you go to slide 6, also it's important that you select to download the 64-bit version. That's the only version that will work well on a Mac.
Moving on to slide 7, we see that we need to open up the Boot Camp Assistant, and we actually need to make sure that it's up to date. So as we move to slide 8, you'll see what Boot Camp Assistant looks like when you first open it. And if you go on the top left corner of your Mac, you'll see the name Boot Camp Assistant. You click there and go down to About Boot Camp Assistant. It'll show that little window you see in the middle of the screen that tells you which version you're using. At the time of this recording, it's 6.0.1, and that's the newest version. Whenever you watch this or you do use these instructions, it might be newer. So just make sure that you go to the software update part of App Store and download all the available software updates just to make sure that Boot Camp Assistant is up to date before you continue.
Let's now move to slide number 9. The third step in our instructions is to actually use Boot Camp to install Windows. Now, Boot Camp Assistant is an awesome program, and it does just about everything for you. If you move to slide number 10, it'll show you that Boot Camp Assistant, the first checkbox, it will actually create an install disk from your Windows 10 download. It will also download Windows updates from Apple. You don't have to worry about that, it'll do it for you. And the third checkbox shows you that it'll actually install Windows for you. If you go to slide number 11, when you go to install Windows 10, if your Boot Camp Assistant is missing that first box, that means that your Mac is too old to install Windows 10, and you'll have to install an earlier version of Windows, which we're not going to cover in the scope of this instructions.
As we move on to slide 12, you see that after you've started the installation, when you have your USB drive plugged in, you can continue, and you have to pick which file that you are going to use for the installer. So make sure you choose the file you downloaded from the University Bookstore. And at the bottom, you'll see a little warning saying that your USB drive will be erased. So make sure before you use your USB drive and continue here, that everything you need off that drive is copied to somewhere else and saved, because you will lose everything. So as you hit continue, you will move on to the next screen, which is 13, you'll be able to select the drive you want to use, the hard drive inside your computer that you want to install Windows on, and you can choose how much space you want to leave for OS X and how much space you want to leave for Windows. So make sure that you give Windows as much as you possibly can. Windows itself will need at least 15 or 20 gigs, and every software that you're going to, piece of software that you'll install alongside Windows needs more space on its own. So at least 30 gigs is probably enough, but you can count up all the programs you want to install and get a better estimate before you continue. Just make sure you give it as much as you can, and you should be fine. After you've selected how much space you want by moving the little slider bar back and forth, you can click Install. As you click the Install button, it will partition the hard drive for you. That might take up to half an hour, depending on the size of your hard drive. And it will automatically restart for you into the Windows installer. So make sure everything else is closed, because it will close down for you.
Okay, if you move to slide 14, the fourth step in our instructions is to actually install Windows. So once your computer boots back up from restarting, you'll come to a screen that looks like slide 15. Now, once you get to this step, it is very, very important that you select partition 4, Boot Camp. That's the partition that's been created by Boot Camp specifically for Windows. And if you select any other partition besides that one, it's not going to work, and you could possibly overwrite all of your files and everything you have on your computer. So it's very important that you select that partition 4. If you go to slide 16, once Windows is installed, it'll come to your Windows 10 home screen. The last step that you'll need to do is actually install those drivers that Boot Camp downloaded for you. Those drivers will be found on your USB drive. So if you just open up the USB drive, there will be a folder in there that's labeled Boot Camp. Inside that folder, there's going to be a file called Setup. If you just double click that, it'll run everything for you and install those downloaded drivers for you.
Now, congratulations, you now have Windows 10 and OS X both installed on your computer. At this point, if something happened with this driver installation, go ahead and look at the troubleshooting section of our instructions. And in case you decided to install an older version of Windows, again, go to that troubleshooting section. You might need some help installing the drivers. And if everything's already working and everything's good to go and the driver's installed, congratulations. To decide which version of which operating system you want to run when you start up your computer, you have a few options. First, as the computer is starting, you can hold the Option button, and as you hold that button down as the computer starts, it will show you all the different operating systems you can have installed on your computer, and you can choose which one you want to start up in. Another option, when the computer's running, on OS X, you can go to System Preferences, and you see in the left picture of slide 17 that you can go to the Startup Disk part of the System Preferences, and once you're in there, you can select which disk you want to start up on, and when you restart the computer, it will start up in that operating system. In Windows, on the other side of the screen here, we see that there's a little gray box in the bottom left corner of your Windows when you're running Windows called the Boot Camp Assistant, and when you click on that, you can get into several options, several preferences that will let you adjust things on your Mac. And one of those is Restart in OS X. If you click Restart in OS X, it will restart right then, and as the computer starts up again, it will go into OS X. So that's how you can select which version, which operating system you want to start up in, and that gives you access to all your Windows programs and your OS X programs as well. So if you have any questions, again, go back to our instructions. It's all there. These are just some of the more important things that you might have some trouble with. And if you need help with the troubleshooting, then I hope you enjoyed this presentation. Thank you.